Control your mind or lose your life. Chapter 5. Emotions are tools, not masters. Let's get this straight. You are not weak because you feel emotions. You are weak when emotions control your actions. There's a difference, a big one. Most people live under emotional control. They wake up and let their mood decide their day. They face a problem and let frustration take over. They feel fear and they stop. Everything is based on how they feel. And that's why everything is unstable, because emotions change fast, without warning. One moment you feel confident, the next moment you feel doubt. One moment you feel motivated, the next moment you feel lazy. One moment you feel calm, the next moment you feel angry. So if your actions depend on your emotions, your life will always be inconsistent. That's not control, that's chaos. You need to understand this. Emotions are signals, not commands. They tell you something, but they don't decide for you. That's your job. That's your responsibility. But most people don't see it that way. They feel something and they obey it instantly. They feel anger, they lash out. They feel fear, they avoid. They feel stress, they panic. No pause, no awareness, no control. Sound familiar? It should, because that's how most people operate. But not you. Not anymore. You're building something different. You're building control. And control means this. You feel everything, but you don't follow everything. Say it again. I feel, but I don't fold. Again, I feel, but I don't fold. That's the mindset. Let's break this down. Anger, one of the strongest emotions. It hits fast, it hits hard, and it demands action. Raise your voice, prove your point, win the argument. That's what anger wants. But what does that actually get you? Think about it. How many times has reacting in anger improved your situation? How many times has it made things better? Rarely. Most of the time, it creates damage to relationships, to your reputation, to your self-control. So what do? You don't suppress anger. You don't pretend it's not there. You acknowledge it. You feel it, but you don't obey it. You pause, just like you learned before. You create space, and in that space, you remind yourself, this is an emotion, not an order. That's the shift. That's control. Now let's talk about fear, because fear is quieter, but more dangerous. Fear doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Don't do it. What if you fail? What if it goes wrong? And if you listen, you stay stuck. You avoid risk. You avoid growth. You avoid opportunity. But here's the truth. Fear is not always a warning. Sometimes it's a sign you're moving forward, a sign you're stepping outside your comfort zone, a sign you're growing. So the goal is not to eliminate fear. The goal is to act despite it. You feel the fear and you move anyway. That's what courage is. Not the absence of fear, but control in the presence of it. Say it again. I act even when I feel fear. Again, I act even when I feel fear. That's power. Now let's talk about stress, because stress is everywhere. Deadlines, pressure, expectations. It builds up, and if you don't control it, it controls you. Most people react to stress by losing control. They rush, they panic, they overthink, and that leads to mistakes. But stress doesn't have to break you. It can focus you, if you handle it correctly. So what do? You slow down. Yes, slow down. When everything feels urgent, that's when you need control the most. You take a breath, you step back, and you ask, what actually matters right now? What can I control? What's the next step? You simplify, you focus, you act. That's how you respond to stress. Now let's go deeper, because emotions are not the enemy. They are information. Anger tells you something matters. Fear tells you something is uncertain. Stress tells you something requires attention. So instead of fighting emotions, you use them. You listen, but you don't obey. That's the difference between weak minds and strong minds. Weak minds are controlled by emotions. Strong minds use emotions as tools. Let's make this practical. You feel frustrated. Old pattern? You complain. you lose focus, you slow down. New pattern, you recognize it. You ask, why am I frustrated? What's causing this? What can I change? Now frustration becomes feedback, not a problem, a tool. Same with fear. Instead of running, you analyze it. Is this real danger or just discomfort? If it's just discomfort, you push through. Same with anger. Instead of reacting, you control it. You channel it into action, into focus, into improvement. That's mastery. Not removing emotions, but directing them. Now here's the part most people ignore. Emotional control requires practice. You don't just decide once and become calm forever. You train it every day, in small moments. When someone annoys you, you pause. When something goes wrong, you breathe. When you feel pressure, you focus. These small moments build control, and over time, they create a strong mind. But if you ignore them, if you keep reacting, nothing changes. You have a choice. Every moment, every emotion, every situation. React and lose control, or respond and take control. And remember this, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to react to everything. Sometimes the strongest move is staying calm, is staying silent, is staying in control. Because when you control your emotions, you control your actions. And when you control your actions, you control your life. Say it again. I feel, but I don't fold. Again, I feel, but I don't fold. That's your standard now. Final takeaway. Emotions are powerful, but they are not in charge. You are. If you let emotions lead, you lose control. If you lead your emotions, you gain power. You have a choice. Be controlled by how you feel or control what you do despite how you feel. That's the key. And in the next chapter, we go deeper because control is not built in comfort. It's built in struggle. It's built in pressure. It's built when things are hard. And that's where mental toughness is created.